Hello everyone and welcome to Diving In with Josh. I am Josh. This is the wrestling podcast, not about wrestling, but yet about pro wrestling fans. And today we do have a chat with someone very special. But before we get to that chat, I do just need to, it's been, however many episodes in, I've recorded a bunch, as I've said a bunch of times. I've just kind of recorded and then releasing these into the world every single week. And when I kind of started this adventure and kind of moving out of just wrestling and doing some other stuff, I knew that it was going to be a bit of a risk, and I didn't know if people would catch on, didn't know if people would have the same look on it that I do, because it is different, especially when you, quote-unquote, come out of your lane. But it's been wild, and the support and love for this show has been so amazing and fun, and, every single week it seems they get new fans listening to this show, and that was kind of the goal, as with any podcast, to get people listening. But diving in especially, I just want to really show that you can talk about anything in this world, and wrestling fans have more to offer than, I guess, just wrestling. But with this show, it's so important that I've had chats about mental health, about people's views on the world, about fun stuff like music and theatre and writing and whatever it may be. And the good thing about this show is that there's always something else to talk about. You can always have guests back. You can always have new guests as we kind of progress. So I just wanted to quickly, as we kind of start this episode, I wanted to kind of put that in there just to say, hey, this is something that I really want to put a lot of effort and time into, and you see new episodes every single Tuesday, and just thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and it really does mean a lot as we grow this thing here, and Wrestling Reverb, and everything that Brainbuster Radio, not that this show is on Brainbuster Radio, but of course they're a big part of my wrestling community and everything that they've got going on, or we, I should say, and it's just fun, just really fun to do this. But anyway, I'm not going to take up too much more time. Let's get to our chat today with a very special guest. Alrighty, so I'm sitting here virtually, of course, with a very special guest. I'll let him introduce himself, of course. If for anyone that, reads the title and not sure who you are, and what's your kind of background in wrestling, I would say?
So I'm Dits On Wrestling. I've been part of Twitter now for a good maybe 2-3 years. New to the podcast game, though. Started that back in April. Pretty much just cover everything there is to cover about wrestling, the news, highlights, because I don't watch the entirety of Raw or SmackDown. I press fast forward and away I go. So I can really only cover the highlights. And then I throw some recommendations out there. And that is essentially my episodic stuff. But I also throw out bonus episodes as well. So like power rankings. And just like, I try to be an interactive podcast as much as I can. So lots of shout outs, lots of interactive stuff for you guys to get involved with, and that's essentially it. I'm finding my feet in the podcast.
I have been listening to your show. As I said to you, I am genuinely a fan. I kind of reached out to you, or we just started chatting after the recommendation of whenever this is being recorded a week after, but kind of your recommendation of me and stuff like that with this show, because it is a wrestling podcast. I would say it is the wrestling podcast that isn't about wrestling, but it just kind of spiraled from there, and I was like, we need to have a chat. You seem like a cool guy, but of course, as I said, this isn't really a wrestling podcast, but it is. It's just about pro wrestling fans. You've been trying to get into the podcasting world for some time now, though, am I correct?
Yeah, so I'd say I probably looked at it back in February last year. So I put up a little cryptic tweet. It was literally just a picture of a podcast microphone and a question mark. And I just thought, if somebody responds to this and goes, that sounds interesting, I thought that'll be the decider of whether I go ahead and do it. And it just never happened. And I put it off and put it off and put it off. And then I got to about September time, and I thought, right, time to do it. My wife got me all the podcast equipment for my birthday. I was like, I don't have a choice now. She's paid for something to do this podcast. So if I don't do it, she's probably going to kill me. But sadly, work then took me away in October. So I had to take a hiatus from all wrestling of any kind. It was put on hold until April. And that's when I thought, right, here we go. I'm settled back at home and let's just go for it.
Yeah,
so it's been in the makings for a while.
Yeah, I knew that it was kind of in the makings for a while, just, a few roadblocks in the way. But for anyone that doesn't know, and just for a bit of a brief background on it with you, what kind of drew you into wrestling, and what kind of made you a fan of wrestling?
I was trying to think of stuff that you were going to ask me today, and that was one of the things that I was trying to figure out, because I drove to work this morning. I was just like, what actually drew me into it? Because I've been watching it, I know, since about 1998, so I was 7. But because I was 7, my memory is absolutely terrible, and you'll know that as this podcast goes on. You ask me questions, I have no idea. But I don't know. I think it was just, and at that age, I think it was the characters. Like The Rock was my go-to wrestler. Just everything about him, it's so entertaining. And I always looked at the wrestling characters more than I did, like cartoon characters and stuff like that. I just felt more drawn to them. Maybe it's just because they were real people. I don't know, but just seeing The Rock and doing his thing, and then Austin having the edgier side of it, I was just like, this is cool as shit. Can I swear?
Yeah, go ahead. Say whatever you want.
I was just like, this is cool as hell. I need to carry on watching this. And my grandma bought me a videotape of like the People's Champ, and it was just, I think it was just as The Rock turned face. So it covered his whole, I think it covered like a 2-year period of him just being a face. I just remember watching that like probably about 4 times a week, and I was just, from there it was just hooked, and I haven't looked back. I had a break for about 3 years, back in about 2007, I think it was. But I've always been interested in it. Even in that gap, I was always kind of following what was going on. And funnily enough, it was The Rock that brought me back in again. So,
well, there you go. It always comes full circle. It is weird with wrestling though, because I'm like you. I started watching about 99, 2000 from what I'm told, but I can't really remember until about 2002. But it is weird when you're a kid, because of all people who drew me into wrestling, or who I'm told by my older brother all the time, is that Goldust drew me in. I loved Goldust as a kid. Of all characters, I guess it was just the face paint and the weirdness, and I'm a weird ass person now, so it kind of makes sense. But it is weird that the weirdest people can sometimes draw you in, and then it's just a matter of keeping you in. And wrestling is a wonderful, wonderful world. However, of course, as you grow up, life happens and other things get in the way, where you take breaks, or whether you still keep tabs on it or not. But it is weird what can draw you back in. But we were chatting about this show, and we're like, what are we going to talk about today? Because I kind of leave it up to the guests to decide a topic, and you kind of said, I hope you don't get mad for me sharing this in the DM. You said, I'm not a very interesting person, and I was like, I'm like, okay, surely you're an interesting person. From the stuff I've listened to of you, you do have a character about yourself, and just the way that you present yourself and stuff like that. I'm like, no way. You've got to have something here. And then we kind of touched on something, and we'll get into that in a minute. But as a kid, did you always kind of, and feel free to tell me if you don't want to be too open about this, but as a kid, did you always kind of think that about yourself? You're like, what do I really have to talk about? Or if someone was to ask you that as a 10-year-old kid, what would be kind of your answer to that? Would you say that you've always been like that, or would you say you are kind of selling yourself short a little bit?
I'd say it was more like a recent thing, like, because as a kid, like, I was always the class clown, like, through and through. And then I started my career when I was 18, and I carried it on then. I think it's since I've got since I've got married and had kids and settled down, I've grown up a lot. So I feel like a lot of my immaturity is still there. It's very dormant though. Like it comes out every now and then. But literally my life is, and it's no complaint at all. I wouldn't change it for the world. Like my wife, my kids, my job, and wrestling.
Yeah.
So this podcast is for wrestling fans, but we don't talk about wrestling.
Yeah.
So I was like, outside of wrestling, I'm not going to come on here and talk about my wife and kids for an hour. So I was like, what do I have left to give?
Listen, I'm not married. I don't have kids, but my life is basically wrestling. So, don't worry. You're not in the minority. But we'll kind of just jump right into what we kind of decided to talk about today, and I'll let you kind of usher in on what we're kind of talking about. I
thought if I had to go with anything that you'd even be remotely interesting to anybody else about me, is the fact that I am part of the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
So I figured that would be something that not many people would be able to lay their hat on here. So I thought,
definitely not me. I know nothing about it. This is why I'm interested in doing these kind of episodes, is because I can learn about the Royal Navy and what it kind of takes and what kind of gets your mindset into even approaching something like that. So take me to the beginning of this kind of journey. Was this something that you were like, yep, I'm going to do this? You've always wanted to do it?
So my life from, I'd say, primary school up until now, to be honest, has been just winging it. I just wing life. I just take it as it comes.
Relatable.
So I went through school, did well at school. I've always had a knack just for putting in minimum effort and getting maximum gain. Or I've always been like that. And then I went to college, and it just my interest in anything academic just went completely out the window. It wasn't because I was too busy, partying or anything like that. Because I didn't really have that kind of group of friends. It was more like I'd go and play football, I'd go and play golf, play video games, watch wrestling. I just lost interest completely in just absorbing more information into my head. Like it just didn't interest me. So I ultimately failed every single exam that I did across the board, because I was initially going to become a games developer, and when I look back, it's ridiculous. I don't even know why that was my career choice, but that's what I went for. And I think I just played the Xbox every single day, and I thought, you know what, I could make this. So that was all my subject. I think it was physics, maths, computing, and I think it was English language.
So all the hard stuff.
So yeah, all the stuff that I probably shouldn't have done in hindsight. If I did drama, I might have scraped a C, but everything else just I think they were U's. So I think it goes A, B, C, D, E, and F, and then U, and that's what I got. U in absolutely everything, and I knew it was coming because my friends were exactly the same boat. They just didn't care. And they texted me and said, "Oh my God, like I've just got my results. I failed everything." I was just like, "Oh my God, like we're kind of in the same boat here." So I'm dreading looking at mine. And lo and behold, I opened it, and there it was, complete failure across the board.
Was it more so that you didn't want to do it, or you just couldn't, or was it just a lack of interest?
I think it was a lack of interest, to be honest. I don't know what it was. I can't quite put my finger on it. I'd just go into college every day, and I'd just be like, I just cannot be arsed with this. Like just learning about equations in maths, or doing like coding in computing and physics. I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, I do not need to know this stuff. I can just wing it and just do some random job that isn't this. And yeah, so I just completely lost interest, failed. My dad wasn't happy. And I don't think anybody was surprised to hear that either. He's a very straight-laced man, and he'll tell you exactly how it is. And he laid it out to me that he was not a happy man. And he pretty much said, right, you're either getting an application to go back for another year, you're going to find yourself an apprenticeship to do, or you're going to stack some shelves in the local supermarket or something like that. And I was just like, all those options suck, and I'm not interested in any of those, but I'm going to have to save face and just try the college thing. I was like, nah, I'm not going back to college. I refuse to go back to college. Don't want to do that. So I looked at the apprenticeship stuff, and it was like engineering and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, I am not technically minded. I'm not a practical person. I can't put up a shelf. Like I rely completely on IKEA furniture because flat packing is out of my range. Never mind
me
anything
too.
else.
I'm like, my sister put up a shelf for me the other week. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna watch her do it.
Yeah, my wife puts up all the shelves, all the pictures. Like my man cave right now is not complete because I'm relying on her to put these pictures up. Like I don't want to do anything wrong.
Same here. I'm glad we've never met and never were roommates because we would have no shelves. Everything would be on the floor.
So the apprenticeship side of it, that went out the window, and I was just like, I see myself with a job packing shelves in a supermarket, and not that there's anything against it. I was just like, I don't really want to do that. And my dad was also in the Navy. He was in the Navy at the time, and he planted the seed, and he kind of said, "Would you consider going down this route?" And I was kind of, I don't know if it's something that would interest me. I've seen everything that he's had to do. I didn't really spend that much time with him when I was growing up because he was always away. Yeah. And when he wasn't at sea, he was living in Scotland, whereas I was living in England. So even then, it was probably like every other weekend, maybe even once a month I was seeing him. So I was kind of like, if I ever get to the point where I have kids, I was like, that doesn't interest me. Yeah. I'd be happy doing it. But he planted the seed. And I think as time went on and interviews, I wasn't getting interviews for jobs and it was getting really frustrating. I think that seed started growing a little bit bigger every single day. Yeah. And I just happened, this is the one thing that I could pinpoint as a story that I could tell that is just absolutely bizarre. It's such a weird situation. I don't know how I ended up in it. But because I literally had nothing more to do, I didn't have a job, I wasn't at college. Like my mates who failed had jobs, so they could actually go off and do something, whereas I was just a couch potato. I was like, what am I doing with my life right now? Nothing. Yeah. So I used to take walks quite a lot. I used to go out, just put my headphones in and just walk somewhere that I didn't even know, just walk. And I ended up in Glasgow in the city centre because my dad lived about 40 minutes away in a local town called Paisley. Yep. So I got on the train, went to Glasgow, and I was just wandering around. I didn't have any intention to go in any shops or buy anything. I just wanted to walk around, and I stumbled across a art museum. No interest in art whatsoever. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go in and just have a look. So I went in, had a look, and I was just like, these are really nice. Don't really know what I'm looking at. Don't know how to interpret these paintings, but yeah, they're nice. That's a nice colour. Yeah, so that's blue. That's nice. And I was like, right, that's enough art for one day. I'm going to leave. And as I was leaving, it said, there's a special exhibition going on upstairs. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll have a look at it, see what's going on. And when everyone ever asks me about joining the Navy, this is kind of the LinkedIn story to it, and it's just bizarre that it is the case. I went upstairs, and the moment I walked in, I was greeted by at least 6 clay penises, and I was like, what is happening here? There was clay penises on the right, there was some vagina molds on the other side. I was like, what is happening? What is this?
Where
is this
are
real?
You?
It was some kind of genital exhibition of some description. I was like, "What is happening right now?" I was like, "Do I walk around? Do I look at this? Does it look bad if I just walk in and walk straight back out? Like, should I feel embarrassed about this?" I just went, "Nah, I'm going." Like, I'm walking around and practically giving every penis in here a hand job, and I was like, "Nah, I'm getting out of here." So I left the museum and just bolted right and started heading down the street. I thought, I'm going home. I said, that's enough madness for one day. So I started walking down the street, and out the corner of my eye, across the road, I noticed a careers office for the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. And literally, it was just from me seeing it out the corner of my eye. Next thing I know, I was sat in the seat across from one of the careers guys in there, and he was handing me an application form, and I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. My body just seems to be on autopilot, and I'm taking this application, I'm leaving it and going, right, I'm going to take this home. I'm going to show my dad and say, look, this is something I'm interested in. We're going to fill out the form together, and we're just going to go from there. And it just all happened in just one swift motion. I don't know if it was the penises that pushed me towards doing it. I don't know. But it just seemed to be just one fluid motion of, there's a careers office. And then I was at home and I was saying to my dad, I want to join the Royal Navy. So it was a very weird day.
I was going to say that's a weird. I'm not sure if I could have anyone on and talk about the Navy and say penis has brought me here. Thank you. That is a very. This is like. So, what's going through your mind when you're sitting in that chair and getting that application form kind of handed to you, or just having that conversation with that careers guy that you mentioned? What's going through your head? Are you just going, what the hell's going on? I just got on a train and I just looked at some penises and now I'm here.
It was bizarre. I think in my head I knew I had to do something. I couldn't go around looking at genital exhibitions all my life. I needed to do something with my life. And the fact that my dad had planted the seed of joining the Navy and going down that route, same as him, I think it was just. I think that's what drove me into it. And I was sat in the chair and I wasn't nervous about it. I wasn't worried about it. The guy behind the chair, and like now that I've been in for 8.5 years, coming up 9 years now, like I can kind of see how a careers person would act in that situation. But me sat there as a 17-year-old kid, him saying, oh, you're going to travel the world, you're going to see this, you're going to see that, oh, the pay is fantastic, job security, pension. I was like, I'm just completely wide-eyed. I was just like, I don't know what. I'm just a rabbit in the headlights. I don't know what you're saying to me right now, but it sounds fucking incredible. Yeah. Like, sign me up. And so he sold me the dream, and that was it. I went home and told my dad, and he was just like, "Are you sure this is something that you want to do?" And I was just like, "I think so." And then the ball just went rolling from there.
So, how long was the time between handing in that application or filling it in to actually getting started, or at least getting, the green light to say this is something that's going to happen?
I think it was August, because I remember it was just before I turned 18. So I think it was August 2009, and I walked through the gates of HMS Raleigh, where we do all our basic training, in June 2010. So that's 10 months. Okay.
And getting into that, the kind of, I guess you were kind of already alluding to this. You were kind of like, this feels right. This is something I need to do. I need to do something with my life. But what does it take to get into the mindset of going, okay, I'm actually going to do this and this is happening?
I don't think anybody kind of prepares for it until you're actually there. I mean, what we did, most of the class that I ended up joining, there was a forum for people. I think it was just for the Navy in general. So people just asking questions of like who are in the Navy or people potentially joining up. Like I met so many people before I even joined there, which was great. So we had a shared connection straight away. So when we got there, it wasn't as awkward as it potentially could have been. But I think we were so focused on just getting there. It was we were doing preparation, doing like fitness tests, like every day. Like I used to run down the local canal like every single day, just trying to get my fitness up, swimming every other day, trying to get my fitness up. So it was more a mindset of like, I'm expecting this thing to be physically exhausting, so I need to get my body in shape. And that was my focus before going there. Mentally preparing myself. Like I said, I wing stuff, so I didn't really worry about it. It was only when I was on the train going down, because the train's in Plymouth, which funnily enough is where Luke is from, who was on here the other week. So it was a 6-hour train journey, and you have to wear a suit. And I had my dad's Navy kit bag on, so I had a bullseye on my back for anybody that thought, he must be joining up the same day as me. But you could see like fresh-faced lads in their shirts and their ties and, looking nervous. And you just straight away, you knew that they were going the exact same location that you were. Yeah. And it was only then that it really sunk in, because I stood in the bit in between the carriages where the toilet is, and because some guy nicked my seat. So we were stood out there, and I ended up just talking to 3 or 4 guys. And we were all kind of, I think it was more excitement, to be honest, about getting there and just seeing what it was like. But it was such a weird, because obviously I think my mum and sister took me to the station to drop me off, and I didn't, I said goodbye, and it was sad. But I think as soon as I was on the train, like, that just kind of went away. I was just more excited to get there. But I think I started to go, have I done the right thing?
Yeah.
Like the first night that we got there.
Because it's obviously a commitment. It's obviously a huge commitment. It's going, okay, this is kind of my life at this point anyway. This is my life now. So was there, I know you said you were kind of just a couch potato and not really doing too much and whatever it may be, but was there, I don't know if you ever live anything with regrets or anything like that, but was there any point, at least at the beginning, when you kind of started this, to go, oh, this is not for me, I kind of regret doing this?
There was only one moment that I thought, I've done the complete opposite of what I should be doing in life by being stood here in this mess with, I think I had about 33 guys sharing accommodation with me. Because what happens is you get there, you get introduced to everyone, you get split down into classes, get your photos taken, and you go to the galley, have some food, and it's kind of, and you get your kit issued to you as well. And I think it was that moment where we were sat in a classroom, so those kits sprawled out all over the floor. So it was like your stuff that you've brought yourself, because you had to bring kit with you, like, so your dusters and your polish and your shoe brushes, all that kind of stuff. So we were sat in this classroom. So there was about 60 of us in this classroom. So it was very like tight and squashed in, and there was just kit everywhere. And I remember just sitting there and just like, oh my God, like, what is going on? And the guy was stood at the front telling us what we needed to be doing with it. So we needed to be folding our like duster into a triangle, writing our name, stencil our name onto it. He said, this is where you write your name on, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is happening here? Like, yesterday I was in my pants playing the PlayStation, and today I'm sat here with all these people, like, making a triangle out of a duster. I was like, what has happened? And so we did all that, and it was fine. I did feel a bit of anxiety when I was doing it. But when we actually went up to the mess and they showed us around where we were going to be sleeping and where our lockers were, on the bed was a big brown bag, and that was all our uniform. And they said, right, just make sure you try all your uniform on, make sure it fits. Anything that doesn't, put it to one side. And then just put it in your locker. We'll show you how to iron the stuff that goes in and how to fold it correctly to make it all neat and all that kind of stuff. He said, so for today, just fuck it in to the locker, however you want. Training starts tomorrow, essentially. Because at this point, we hadn't signed on the dotted line either. So there was still a chance for people to bow out the following morning. Because then we swear an oath the next day. So if people are going, like, oh, this isn't for me, they can leave on day one. So that's good. But yeah, when I was unpacking all these clothes and the uniform, like, my heart sunk, and I could just feel myself getting so emotional, just like, oh, like, what am I doing? I was looking at the guy stood opposite me. He's just this big hulking Scottish guy, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I've got you here, I've got this guy that looks like 12 sat next to me. I was like, he looks 40. Like, I'm just sharing this space with so many different people and coming from different backgrounds, and it was very overwhelming. And it wasn't until we did pipe down at 10:30, so everyone has to be in the bed, lights off. I was lying in bed, and I was just trying to sleep. I couldn't sleep, and the way my bed was, I was facing to the right, and my locker face was literally there. So if I just rolled over, I was hitting it. And I was just sat there, and I was like, oh God, I feel a sneeze coming on, but I don't want to wake anybody up. But I couldn't hold it in, so I sneezed. And as I did it, I smacked my head against the side of the locker, and I was just like, ah! And then just the whole mess just erupted in laughter for those who were awake, and I'm sure there was a lot of them. Just everyone just started laughing, and I thought, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was the moment I was like, nah, I think I'm okay, because I always had that class clown reputation.
Yeah.
And despite the fact it was accidental that I made them laugh by doing it, it did make me feel a lot better. And then from there, it was just like, right, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and I guess
next day, signed on the dotted line.
I guess with that kind of stuff, there would be a sense of we're kind of all in the same position here. So, everyone's kind of signed up for the same kind of experience, so you've got to have some kind of a bond with these people, especially as it moves along. So, let's fast forward a little bit, maybe like a year or two in, or whatever it may be. But was there ever a sense of, okay, I feel pretty comfortable here?
I'd say, to be honest, I think it was like the first couple of weeks that I felt happy and comfortable, and I got to know everybody. I was one of the more, I'm not going to blow smoke up my own arse, but I was one of the more popular people. Like I could get involved with everything. I didn't shy away. I was just an 18-year-old kid, so I was just there, to have a good time. Obviously, I want to get a career out of it, but I wasn't the person that was, sat in the corner just like completely, in darkness and not knowing what to do. And there were a couple of people like that, but thankfully the class we had was really good, and we could, pull everyone, through it. So I was comfortable, I'd say, within the first couple of weeks. But it wasn't until I passed out with so you do basic training, and then you do your branch specific training. So I went, I am a writer, which doesn't sound as glamorous as you think it is. I don't write novels or anything like that. I'm essentially HR admin, so I do all the pay and all that kind of stuff. And week 2 of the writer training, I failed the exam. So I smashed the first exam and failed the second one. And I would like to say it was my fault, but it wasn't. The thing that I failed on, we just didn't get taught it, or I just didn't listen. It was one or the other. So I'm going to say I wasn't taught. And people were able just to wing it and go, hang on, we've never seen this before, but they still did it. I didn't, because I think I was so confused on the day. I was like, I don't know what this is. Yeah. And I failed it, and I got dragged in front of the warrant officer, who heads the training for the branch. And he said, look, you did well in the first exam. You've messed up here. Like, what's going on? And I said, no, I didn't know what I was doing. And he was like, all right, well, just, pick yourself up, and just make sure you don't, mess up again. Otherwise, you could see yourself walking out the door. And I was like, well, that makes me feel great. Thank you very much for that. But from there, I smashed every other exam. And the added element to the branch that I've chose is that I'm also a submariner as well. So I had to go off and do submarine training as well. Yep. And it breaks down to a dry and a wet phase. So your dry phase is just all theory based, all classroom based. And I was the class leader. I think the instructors knew of my dad from being in the Navy. So I don't know if that's why they decided to pick me, but I think that's why. If they won't have any other reason to. Unless it was just a look at the drawer out of a hat. I don't know what they do to decide. So I was the class leader, and it was either 8 or 10 weeks of training, and I got the best student for the whole course, which I was really happy with, and then went on to do my wet phase, which is the actual actually qualifying at sea. Yep. Did that for 6 weeks, smashed that. So it was at this point I was just like, I'm winging it, but I'm winging it well. Yeah. And so from there, I've always been comfortable. Like any exams I've had to do, any courses I've had to do for like promotion or anything like that, I've always been a little bit like, a little bit worried about it. But then on the day, just go in, wing it, smash it. And that's just kind of what it's always been. So I think I've always had that. I've had comfort for the last 7 years, I'd say. As soon as I got used to what it was to be in the Navy, I think that was it. I was happy.
That's good to me. Now, you could correct me if I'm wrong. You sound a little bit like the Charlotte Flair of the Navy world.
I'm the queen of the Navy.
No, but in all honesty, it does sound like, just from a disclaimer, everybody, this is the first time we've ever chat on like a at all. We've never talked to each other except on Twitter. So just talking to you in the last kind of 30 minutes or however long we've been talking, you kind of said that you kind of, the kind of popular kind of guy, like you kind of got along with a lot of people. I can tell that just by your personality in that, just that you're pretty easy to get along with, which is a good thing. But, what was kind of, when you were going into this, for anyone that doesn't know kind of too much about the Royal Navy or anything like that, what would be someone's end goal in this? What would be what they're working towards?
I guess...
I know it would vary, but,
Yeah, I'd say, I think that there's a multitude of stuff. So, I mean, for me personally, it's all about career progression. So I want to be the top of my career ladder. So I want to reach warrant officer. That's the highest I can go, unless I commission and become an actual officer, which I don't want to do. Yeah. But for me, that my ladder is warrant officer, and that's what I want to get to ultimately. But for other guys, they just want to see the world, want to go to as many places as they want, do as many foreign tours as they can. Like there's foreign tours all over the world. Some people want to use it as an in to get into something else. So they'll, especially now, because with the state of recruitment and stuff, like there's fast track schemes and all that kind of stuff with engineers anyway. So they're able to come in and they just fly through the ranks because I think they've got degrees and stuff prior to getting there. So they've already got a head start with all the aspects of engineering that they need to know. And they just get forced through, and then they'll hit a certain rank, and then they'll go, right, do you want to continue your career in the Navy and you'll kind of progress at the same level, or this is your chance to, get to this point and then go outside and use the knowledge that you've gained from the Navy and do something else. So like you could be working in like the Rolls-Royce factories or, anything like that. So they've got that option when they come in as well. So I think it's a multitude of stuff. For me, it's all about career, but yes, for the younger guys, I'd say it's definitely all about traveling the world and seeing everything. Unfortunately, being a submariner means I rarely see the world because we're too busy floating. I say floating, not floating at all. We're kind of hovering underneath the water somewhere. So we don't get to see much. But for the guys who are on the actual ships, they see quite a lot of stuff, more so than me anyway. So the young lads lap that up.
Yeah, I guess you would. Anyone would want to see the world at especially at a younger age and stuff like that. But what does kind of day to day look like for you in your field?
I mean, this is going to sound really, really boring, and it is. I go in every day, and it's just like any old office job, and that is a perk of my branch, is that when we're not either at sea or assigned to a ship or submarine, we are, land-based in an office as we would be, like civilian HR administrators. They'd be sat in an office. We're doing it exactly the same. The only difference is we're military. Yeah. But I am, I'm assigned to a submarine at the moment, and it's in a maintenance period, so I don't go down there at the moment because we've got an office just off-site. But if I am assigned to a submarine, I'm doing all that office stuff, but on a submarine or on a ship. So obviously that's where it differs from the civilian side of things. But apart from that, if you're at sea, then you've got everything else that comes with it.
Yeah.
So, stopping off everywhere around the world and humanitarian stuff and drug busting and all that kind of jazz, which is a lot more interesting than me going into work in the morning, making a coffee and sitting down and just going, what the hell am I doing here today?
Listen, I work in a supermarket, so it's much more interesting than what I do. So, but at the same time, it's, is this what you kind of envisioned, or is it kind of just taken a life of its own and you've just kind of, again, just kind of winging it?
when that careers officer sits down with you as you're going through the recruitment process, you're not even in basic training at this point. They are selling the Navy as as they should be. That's their job.
Yeah.
You're gonna see the world. You're gonna get paid this. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. And you're just like, oh god, that sounds absolutely amazing. And then you get to rally, which is where the basic training is, and you're firing guns, and you're doing hikes in the moors and stuff like that, and you're doing camping, and you're jumping off the side of ships, and you're just like, oh gosh, this is fucking awesome. Like, I want to do this. This is amazing. And then from there, it just gradually starts to slow down, and you kind of go, this is the Navy. This is what I'm going to be doing. And I think it was about a year in, because my first sea draft, as it was a submarine in a maintenance period. So again, it was office based. So I was but I'd been to sea at that point, so I'd seen. I'd seen that side of things and how the Navy works there, like how the real Navy works.
Yeah.
But then from there, straight into an office again. I was going, this is going to be me now. I think for X amount of years, however long I decide to be in, it's going to be, and it has been that way. It's always been office based, sea, office based, sea, office based, sea, and I like that. That's the perk of my branch, because like the engineers are just they'll go on a course in Portsmouth, and they'll be there, for a year and a half, learning all their new stuff that they need to know, back to sea, and then they'll do all the sea time, and then they'll go and do another course, and then they'll go back to sea. So they don't get the opportunities I have to go ashore and to get land-based jobs.
Yeah.
So I've lucked out, to be honest, and I'm more than happy that my path has gone this way.
Yeah.
More than happy, especially now that I've got a wife and kids as well. It makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. You seem like you are a family man. You have a wife and kids. So I'm assuming I probably know the answer to this, but this has probably made it a hell of a lot more comfortable for you. You get to spend time with your kids and your wife virtually every day.
Yeah. The hiatus I took from Twitter in October last year was because I went to sea.
Yeah.
So I was at sea over the Christmas period, and well, to put it, to use one word, it was shit.
Yeah. I was going to say, probably wouldn't be great.
So yeah, it was terrible being away from them, and that's the first time that I've been away from the kids. I've been away from the wife once before, but that was the first time with the kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really hard, and the fact that it was over the Christmas period as well, it was shit.
Yeah.
So it just makes things really. It just makes you think, like, what is this the right thing for me now? Like, is it like, because it's not fun for her, it's not fun for me. But then you get back, and then you settle in again, and then you just kind of forget that any of that actually happened. I mean, I've been back now for 3 months.
Yeah. And
it has flown by, and I've completely forgotten about, being away and, the feelings that came with it. And, some people are happy to walk away from their wife and kids for, endless months. And I don't know why. Like some of the guys on board, it's like, oh, it's so nice to have a break from the kids and, a wife nagging in my ear. I like that. I like to have a wife nagging in my ear. I like my kids, to be running around screaming and annoying me, because that's me. Like you said, I am a family man now, and that's where I feel, the most comfortable is, around them. So yeah, it was pretty hard being away from them, but now we're settled in. It's leveled out again. We have balance, which is nice.
That is nice. I can just by where I can see you on video chat at the moment. You just radiate positive energy when you talk about your kids and your wife. So that's a good thing, and you're very much a family man, and it is just refreshing. But as we're kind of winding down here, what do you assume? Do you feel like you're going to be in this field for a long time to come? Is there something that you kind of want to explore? What's the kind of vibe at the moment for you?
I have like a 3-year plan at the moment, and that all involves me being like essentially where I am now. So it'll involve either no sea time or very, very, very little sea time. So at the moment, I'm happy and happy to just carry on what we're doing. I'm close to promotion, so if I get that, then great. If I don't, then I don't really mind. I'm still where I want to be. But after that 3-year point, I don't know. Well, it's going to definitely be a play it by ear kind of thing. Especially with having a wife and kids, it does get very, very hard. Having to leave them. So that might be I think, well, if I ever leave and I leave early before my 22 years is up, I'd imagine it'd be because I just can't be away from them anymore. I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Or the Navy has just completely fucked me over. I'm just like, no, get out. One or the other.
Well, I am that interesting person message. I'm gonna stick in my brain for as long as we happen to talk in this weird wrestling community Twitter world. Because you, my friend, are not an uninteresting person. You're a very interesting person because I just learnt so much crap that I didn't even know about.
Thank you.
So as we kind of finish things up here, this is your chance, of course. Put yourself over. Where can we find you? Where can we catch your show? And the floor is yours.
So on Twitter, you can find me at Dits On Wrestling, and that is essentially the same across the board. So on Instagram and YouTube, the YouTube thing is getting there. I put the podcast episodes on there whenever I can, but I want to kind of do my power rankings as a video rather than a podcast, and I don't know. I don't know if that'll be the case. I don't know if people are that interested in seeing my ugly mug every single week. I don't know. But the actual podcast itself, pretty much everywhere you'd expect to see a podcast. So Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker. There might be another one. Spotify. I don't know if I said that. It's on there as well.
It's everywhere you need to get it.
It's everywhere you need it to be, really, yeah. So you've probably got one of those directories in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And I am there.
But yeah, please check out the show because it is really fun. It only has, I think, you're in 7 episodes at the time of this recording?
I am going to record episode 7 the moment we come off here. So yeah.
Well, then
in its infancy.
Yeah, it's very much still get on board while it's still a baby. So then you can say I've been here from the start because that's always nice to say. But it is a really fun show. Make sure you do check it out. And as we kind of end here, make sure to rate this podcast 5 stars on iTunes and subscribe. You know where to find me at this point. Make sure you catch my other show, Wrestling Reverb, on Fridays on Brainbuster Radio. And we'll catch you guys next time on Diving In with Josh. Peace out.